Larry Show.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the Ike and Larry Show, where we talk about everything unusual, strange, paranormal or not. And I'm Larry, and this is my partner in crime,
Mr. Ike, right here.
Mr.
I think you pointed the wrong direction on the screen.
Did I? Oh, I did.
Yeah,
Okay, I don't have that backwards thing going. Sorry. Okay.
I don't know who's on the
That
other
way.
side of you. Yeah.
Anyway, welcome back, folks. We're here to talk about some more interesting issues in the paranormal and missing and everything else. So we've got all that's mixed in today, Ike. I got a little bit of missing persons. I got a little bit of paranormal. So it's
fantastic.
So it's
I'm trying to figure out why my screen is pulsating.
I'm telling you, it's the UFOs are shining down. They're about ready to suck you right out of your seat and take you back to the home planet.
Well, you know, they're after intelligent people, so I wouldn't doubt that.
No, they're trying to get you. So
obviously mistaken identity.
Yeah.
It's because you pointed at the wrong screen. So anyway, you said you have a really good story today, huh?
Yeah, I do, and I'm really interested in sharing it with everybody. Oh, here we go.
What the heck is that?
I have no. It's a UFO thing going again.
Yeah, that's what they were after. That's what that pulse.
Oh, is that what that was? Okay, well, yeah, folks, if you're interested in hearing about the ghosts of Indian River County, Florida, check my book out, Haunted Indian River County. It's available on Amazon or my website, one of the two. Since Ike is so kind to always be.
It is a fantastic read, people. Can't wait for the second edition.
Yeah, and that's actually beginning in the works now. So you may see that sooner than you hoped or wished. One of the two.
Well, hopefully soon.
All right. Well, I want to talk about today's story because it's really, really interesting, and there's no answers to it really. It occurred back in 1998, so it's only a couple decades old at this point, and it involves a guy named Robert Bob Michael Bobo, B-O-B-O, gentleman up in the northwest part of the United States. He was 36 years of age, and he disappeared in the Rouge River National Forest up in Oregon near the Rouge River. He actually disappeared from an area known as the Woodrow Meadow area, and it's next to the Rouge River itself, and it's somewhere between the town of Prospect, Oregon, and Union Creek, Oregon. Interestingly enough, I did a little checking on the map, and it's about 18 miles as the crow flies from a place known as Crater Lake. I don't know if you've ever heard of Crater Lake up in Oregon.
Absolutely.
Where a lot of beautiful and a lot of strange things have happened there. But a little bit background on Bob Bobo here. He was 36 years old. Doesn't sound like he had a lot of success in life because he was broke. He was absolutely broke, but he loved to camp. He was well known as an experienced backwoods camper. Liked to go out into the Rouge River National Forest, into that Woodruff Meadows area. Very rugged, very tough to get to, but he was good at it, and everybody knew him as an experienced backwoods camper. But on this particular case, it was October of '98. He wanted to go camping. Now, he didn't have any money. So he, on 2nd of October, he was getting food and drinks from friends. He was kind of bumming that stuff off of them and was trying to get a ride out to the campsite. Why? Because he had no car, because he had no money. So he got some food and drink, and he he talked to a friend, a female friend, who at this point, with what we have, is unnamed. I'm sure the law enforcement probably knows her name, but we do not. Talks this lady into driving him out to the campsite. So she gets him out there and drops him off. The next day, a buddy of his, who also is unnamed in the stories, goes out to meet him because Bob liked to hunt. It was one of the things he really enjoyed in life, and he'd made arrangements with a friend of his to meet him out there so they would both go hunting from his campsite. So on the 3rd of October, 1998, sorry, didn't mean to bang the table there, went out to the campsite, and the friend found no sign of him. Found the campsite, found everything in place, found his rifles. Nothing looked disturbed, but he couldn't find Bob anywhere. So after a short period of looking, he called the authorities. The authorities came on out, and I believe it was in Jackson County is where this part of the forest was in. So they called, actually, the Forest Service folks out first to look for him, searched everywhere and couldn't find anything. Authorities searched for, they want to say 2 months before they called the search off. No clues. Huh?
It's a long search.
Yeah, well, it is a long search, but the thing about the crime scene, if you want to call it that, is that nothing was disturbed at all. There was no sign of a struggle, no sign of fighting. Everything was in place. And you would think that if it was another individual, they would have taken the rifles. Let's just say it was a person living in the woods trying to hide out from others. You'd think they would have taken the rifles.
Yeah.
Well, everything was, his clothes were there, the whole 9 yards. And he was just flat gone. His brother went out for the next several months after that and searched the area and found nothing. The brother's convinced it was a homicide. He's convinced it was a homicide because at the campsite was Bob's hat. It was a caterpillar hat. And when I say caterpillar hat, it was a black baseball cap with cat, the symbol for the
diesel engine.
Yeah, that's right. That's what it is. And according to the brother, now personally, I don't see what the attraction is to a hat that's got the cat. But his brother said that was his hat. He loved it. He never went anywhere without it.
Hold on a second. Hold back that train up.
What
is the attraction with a hat that has BMW on it?
Wait, okay. You like the hat, you wear it all the time. But are you going to tell me you wouldn't leave the house without that hat?
No, because I have several of them. So there's always one nearby because of my male pattern baldness. There's always a hat.
Well,
and second question I have is Oregon and Oregon the same place?
Oregon.
Yeah. Because for some reason you keep saying Oregon, and I keep picturing like oregano.
Okay.
East
Oregon,
Coasters.
No, it's where I grew up in Ohio. There was a suburb of Toledo called Oregon. So I guess that's where I'm getting it from. That's what we call it, was Oregon.
Yeah, it's not. It's Oregon. Just make that clear. But great story so far. I am.
Well, really, yes. So, but you had to derail me with.
I had to derail you because of the hat issue, and of course, just to clear to the audience, because you may be living on this side of the Mississippi and they're wondering where the hell is this magic state of Oregon. Just curious. So, continue on. Excellent job so far.
Anyway, so the brother's convinced it's a homicide because his brother wouldn't go anywhere without the hat with this very important symbol on it. Does that make you feel better? Okay.
Much better.
But there's no evidence of a homicide. The detective from Jackson County, a guy named, I have his name right here, Detective Dan Hobbs, found absolutely no evidence of any foul play whatsoever. He was just flat gone, Ike. No tracks, no trails. We've talked about guys in the past, like the first one of this series that we did where the tent was bloodied, but nothing was torn up. We didn't even have that in this case. And he was just flat gone. And there's really no other story to that. He just is flat gone. They've looked. The brother apparently went out there for years and years and still has not even found the body. Now, we've talked about cases where people have gone out later and they have found fragments of clothing, fragments of bones. This is nothing. Now, from what I've been reading here, that particular area is incredibly rugged.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible he fell down something? Surely anything's possible, but there's now a kind of an interesting twist to this. Now, I'm going to go down 2 rabbit holes here. First of all, everybody talks about your neck of the woods being the haven for UFOs, but it's actually there's many people that feel Oregon, whatever we want to say.
Good job. Yeah.
Thank you.
Where are you talking about?
Thank you. Is a hot spot also. In fact, the Lake County area of Oregon is supposed to say, I'm consciously saying Oregon now, okay?
Yeah, give you a complex.
They say that's one of the hot spots. In fact, I have one statistic from there from 2000 to 2023. Where is that stat that I had? Something like 300 sightings for every 100,000 people in the area. Now think about that for a second. That's
That's
a
what,
lot of sightings. That's a
you
lot of
know,
sightings.
that whole area up there, Mount Hood, Mount
Mhm.
Shasta in California,
Yep.
all those
Yep.
big volcanic peaks they got out there are all
Ah,
hot spots.
glad you mentioned volcano, because there's a place that is, as the crow flies, from Woodruff Meadow, where Bob Bobo disappeared, to Crater Lake is about 18.2 miles as the crow flies. Okay. Now, Crater Lake's very, very important because that is a spot where the Klamath people that live up there, Native American folks that live up there, have have a legend about how that lake was created. Now, when I'd first heard about it, Crater Lake, I'm thinking it was a meteorite or meteor hit way back in the day. It wasn't. It's actually a volcano, and it is said to still be active. And they say
I
if
don't doubt
it
that.
does blow, it won't blow very hard because it's basically also underwater. But the common story is that there was an issue between the Lord of the Underworld and the Kalmuth people. The Lord of the Underworld was jealous of them and how they lived their lives, and he apparently fell in love with one of the young ladies of the tribe, and they couldn't connect. And anyway, he cursed the area, and that's what caused the lake. The reality is it's a volcano that has kind of caved in on itself
So filled
scientifically.
filled in caldera.
Basically, basically that's exactly what it is. So a lot of things have happened there. Uh, Everything from UFO sightings. We got a bunch of them that have occurred out there over the years. In fact, in 1980, there was a bunch of reports about military jets chasing 3 UFOs over the lake. There's
Damn.
talk of phantom campsites out there. This is kind of interesting too. Park rangers have gone out there, and you're not allowed to, I guess, camp around the lake. And rangers have gone out there, seen campfires, gone to the spot where the campfire was, only to find nothing there. In fact, there's one story of one park ranger who actually saw people sitting around the campfire, drove her car to it, and as she got out of the car, they were gone. Um,
That happens in several places. I've heard that story more than once. The Marfa Lights in Texas,
oh, I'm
come to
not familiar
mind.
with that one. Oh,
You've never
really?
heard of Marfa, Texas?
No.
It's I don't want to make stuff up, but it goes way back to probably to the 70s or 60s, where you can still go to Marfa, Texas right now and park
Yeah.
in certain areas and see lights in the distance, and nobody can really explain it. And some people tried to debunk them as headlights from a faraway road, but there's been a lot of documentaries on Marfa, Texas. Look that up one of these days.
Well,
It's
you ever
interesting.
heard of the brown lights in North Carolina?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, that's another similar thing.
yeah, it is. Of course, they claim it's swamp gas down there, but I've actually been up there looking, and I'm not seeing how that could be possible. But you got to keep our minds open, right?
But anyway, ghost campfires. That's spooky in
Interesting.
itself.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of stuff like that going on out there. And uh, there's also a huge connection to Bigfoot in that area.
Oh
That
yeah.
whole area around the Rouge River is rife with all kinds of reports of Bigfoot coming out or being seen. In fact, there's one spot near there where they have the only Bigfoot trap in the country. It's not it's a little closer to the coast, but it's still in the southwestern part of the state where they have the only Bigfoot trap in the country set up. It's been up since '74, I think, is what I read.
Mm.
So it's an area that's just filled with mystery. Now, I'm going to tell you another interesting story that comes with this. And tell me if this doesn't sound a tad bit familiar to you and maybe to our audience also. It was back in 1975, a 19-year-old kid named Charles McQuiller was going up there to take pictures. He's a photographer, and he had his camera gear. He was going to go up there for a day or so, take pictures of the beautiful Crater Lake area. Now, remember, this is only 18.2 miles over mountains and stuff, so it's a crow's flight, but still less than 20 miles from Woodruff Meadow, where Bobo disappeared. Anyway, in '75, he's up there taking pictures. He's supposed to take photographs and then go to some friend's house. He doesn't show up. So when he doesn't show up, the friends call law enforcement and search and rescue, and they start looking through the whole area. Once again, they do an extensive search, and they find absolutely nothing. No sign of him, no nothing. In 1976, about a year or so later, some hikers found McQuiller's backpack. Okay, so that again got everybody excited. They went out there and started looking, and about 19 kilometers, I should have looked this up. 19 kilometers is what, about 25 miles far away?
No, it's
I don't know
less.
if you, is it less?
Kilometers smaller. So it'd
Okay.
probably be around 11 or 12 miles or something like that.
Okay. They find remnants or remains, partial remains of him. They find his his zipped up jeans. They find some
weird.
leg bones in his socks and shoes. Yeah, but nothing else. Now the problem is when McQuiller disappeared, there was about 3 feet of snow on the ground. That's a lot of snow to be walking through.
Yeah.
And that's off the trail from where he was at the trailhead. They found him that far away. What was he doing way up there? Now here's the other part of it. He was carrying camera gear and everything else. The camera gear was gone. Everything else was missing. All they found were like the search and rescuers surmise that he suffered from hypothermia, and that gets you a little wacky, and maybe he stripped off his clothes, but it doesn't explain why the pants were zipped up and buckled. But they found nothing else of him, and that was in that same area. Once again, the first thing as a cop I'm going to think about is, who do we talk to? Now, I'm going to go back a little bit to Bobo. They interviewed all of his friends, all of his acquaintances. There was nobody else to talk to out in the woods because he was supposedly by himself. As far as this case, McQuiller, he was way out in the middle of nowhere. So what the heck is happening in places where people can't get to? Are they just literally falling, or getting trashed by an animal, a bear? Thoughts?
The perplexing part for me is always what happens to the non-perishable, decomposing items like backpacks, headphones, phones, shoes, boots, belts, belt buckles, rings, jewelry of any sort, glasses. I mean, that stuff doesn't go away. I've found metal detecting a pair of glasses that's probably 150 years old.
Yeah.
Where's that stuff going? Where did that guy's cameras go? I mean, some bear didn't grab his camera and run off with it.
Well, look what happened. The story we talked about last time. The young lady who was also taking pictures after backpacking out there. Her camera was gone. No sign of her camera. No sign of her flip-flops that she was wearing. Where did they go to? Plastic stays, or that sort of thing, stays forever.
To be really in the conspiracies, or rabbit holes, a lot of people disappear with cameras. A lot of photographers disappear. Is there something that doesn't want to be documented? Are you accidentally taking a picture of something that you probably shouldn't have? And whatever that entity or whatever it is out there says, oh, hell no. We don't mind you coming out here taking pictures of the trees and the lakes, but you just caught my, paranormal family on film, and you're going to have to disappear.
Well, maybe Ike, it's not even a paranormal family. Maybe it's not an alien or some other being. Maybe it's, to put it in simple terms, a man wearing black, if you get my drift.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just find it really, really odd. Oh, bump the table again. Sorry. I find it really, really odd. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Taking a picture accidentally of a serial killer that's been living out in the woods. You're out there hiking around taking pictures, and this guy's been hiding out there for months and months and months. And you may not even take a picture of him, but he thinks you took a picture of him. He's like, oh, crap.
Okay, here's my argument with that. Just like if there's predation and you've got an animal that's attacked, there's got to be some sign that somebody else was there.
Yes.
Even if he walked up behind you and whacked you across the head and made you unconscious, there's going to be some sign of something. You know as well as I do. And at a crime scene, we always leave evidence. That doesn't mean we always find it. People do overlook things. But this seems very strange. Now, going back to where McQuiller was found, 11 or so miles, as we figure, from where he should have been, Doesn't that sound vaguely familiar to our guys up in Northern California that
Yeah.
just walked away from their car?
Walking that far in 3 foot of snow,
Hmm.
not easy. It would take you days. It is incredibly hard.
Now, I do not want to cast disparaging thoughts on any of our brothers and sisters in the business, and I certainly do not want to armchair quarterback. But do you think, especially in our first case here, Robert Bobo, perhaps because he was kind of a drifter, as it seems, could it possibly be great effort wasn't put into it as
I think
compared to,
that has a lot to do with it, I'm sure.
yeah. Now, this other kid, seems like he had friends, seems like he was carrying cameras, so he was obviously somewhat, I won't say affluent, but at least he didn't seem to be a drifter. Uh, no sign of him either until years later.
A lot of it, I think, has to do with people fail to understand the immenseness of the Western states. This isn't Vermont or freaking New Hampshire. If you can, go on a vacation and go to Northern California and then go up to Oregon and go up to Washington, hit, go into Nevada and just see how much open space there's really out there. It is insane. And then you understand how you can literally be hundreds of miles away from anybody, no cell service, nothing. I mean, it's just immensely. Yeah, I spent time up in Oregon, and it just always amazes me. I'm like, if there was a Sasquatch, he could easily live here. There is so much freaking forest. I mean, people think that area is overlogged, and there's no bullshit. I mean, there's just hundreds of miles of freaking forest out there, and it's nuts. It is.
Oh, even on my side of the Mississippi, I've mentioned before that I've hiked the Appalachian Trail in sections, and there's places up there that's not a whole lot different. I think the big difference would be a lot of people do hike the AT, so eventually you're going to have somebody come by. I can only imagine what it must be like in your neck of the woods. I remember, when I was with you in New Mexico, shoot, we probably weren't at any given point in time more than 20 miles away from civilization, but you wouldn't know it.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't know it, back in those mountains and stuff like that.
There's areas in New Mexico, like northern and southern New Mexico, where you can really get out in the middle of nowhere also, but nothing as vast. I mean, in Washington State and Oregon, it's just mind-boggling how.
See, I've never been up there, so I haven't.
It is, it's subtropical, like rainforest. It's really wet. It's giant trees. It's ferns growing everywhere. It's little daylight because the trees are so dense, and it's rocky and it's hilly and canyons and water everywhere. It's insane. I mean, if there was something that was still surviving from ancient days, that would be a good place for it to survive.
Well, and I think that's what fascinated me, because I started researching Michael Bobo. There's not a whole lot to tell. It's not like he had a criminal. Well, if he had a criminal past, it wasn't anything major, anything that was discussed in the articles. But there wasn't a lot of intrigue before he left. There wasn't a fight with anybody. There wasn't, at least it's recorded. He just was gone, and everything. Go ahead.
Conventional thinking would just say, he wandered off, broke a leg, and
Exactly.
Well, that's an easy excuse. They would have found him. I mean, he searched for him.
But also it defies the evidence presented. Here's a guy who left everything at his campsite, including his hat, who his brother claims he never left without. So if he was going to go for a walkabout, he was going to go out and just check out the area, and he fell. Apparently, it would have taken his hat. So it was still there. His rifles. Now, I'm sorry, I would not leave my campsite. I don't care how remote it was, with my weapons there. I would,
I wouldn't either, because you can't trust campsites. What you do, what normal, I don't know if they're normal or not, but what most of us would have done, like when we were deer hunting and stuff in the older days, and we had weapons left in camp, we would hide them. We would unload them and like stash them somewhere, cover them up with branches, because the last thing you want is some other nosy person to come wandering into your camp and find your weapons and kill you with it. So you always hide all your valuables. You never leave your camp's valuables laying around. aka weapons.
Exactly. And this spot, while remote, it's obviously known. It's on the map. You can find Woodruff Meadows on the map. It's to the west. It's to the southwest of Union Creek and to the northwest of Prospect, Oregon, and it's right on the river. And it's marked, and it's really rugged. I was looking at some pictures on Google Earth. But people know it's there. So could it have been an individual who was watching him? Is it possible this person could have attacked him and left his weapons there? I find that hard to believe. I do.
Two men fighting, there would be a sign of a struggle somewhere. There'd be maybe some ripped clothes or, torn off parts and pieces of something. He would have most likely taken the weapons, or at least taken the weapons and thrown them somewhere or stashed them somewhere.
Mhm.
I don't know.
So, and you combine that with the paranormal history of this area, and folks, take a look at it. I Googled things like UFO activity or Bigfoot activity in Oregon, not Oregon, but Oregon.
Very nice.
Thank you. I'm learning. I'm learning.
Very good.
But check that place out and check out all the interesting things that happen up there. Some people say that Oregon is the hottest spot for UFO sightings
And Bigfoot sightings.
And Bigfoot sightings.
Both of those stories go back literally hundreds of years. There are Bigfoot encounters that go back to the miners, the 49ers that are out there whacking around on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
They were locked in a cabin. I don't know if you heard the story of them locked in a cabin where all night long, hairy being critters were throwing giant rocks at their cabin.
Yes, I actually have heard. It was, yes.
So could that be a scenario? Because there's a lot of stories of people that were like maybe camping in one of these areas, or anywhere for that matter, and they wake up and they have this weird feeling and they say, well, I got to go take a leak. And they step outside and it's so unusual outside. They're just something not right, to where they like, screw this. I'm going back in the cabin and peeing in a can because something isn't right. Or they look up and they see some weird light in the sky. Something woke them up and they walk outside and look up and there's a light. So what about a Bobo, the reason he wasn't wearing his cap or anything, he just got up to take a pee. He walked away from his campfire if he had one, or wherever he was. He got out of his tent, walked 10 steps to the side to take a leak, and something just snagged him up. Hence no cap, nothing was touched. He's gone.
Well, it does seem like a logical way for this to have occurred. But like I said, just flat gone. Wow. And you combine that with the history of the area, you just have to wonder, did something like that occur? Now, I did have talked to a guy on my old radio show, Paranormal Stakeout. His family runs a camp and a store up off the Columbia River, and he tells of all the Bigfoot sightings up there. But he brought up something very interesting too. Apparently, at near the mouth of the Columbia River, where it begins to empty out into the ocean, there was a government facility there that was part of the atomic bomb
Manhattan Project? Or?
Manhattan Project. Thank you. Gosh, Manhattan Project. And it was where they were testing they were experimenting with the heavy water, that type of thing. And it remained a government facility for years and years that later worked on animals.
Oh, great.
And created mutant versions of animals that are supposedly all through those woods out there.
That sounds like Plum Island up in New Jersey, I think it is, off the coast of New Jersey.
Okay, yeah.
You ever heard of Plum Island?
Oh yeah.
But Nazi scientists out there doing weird shit?
Yeah. So, with everything, with stories, and you're a cop, you've heard stories too, there's always some semblance of truth to some of these stories. There's always just that piece that grew all the other crazy stories out of it, but somewhere there's a little bit of truth to it. So how could we have all these stories and some part of it not being accurate or being true? I don't know.
Yeah. And here in the Western states, as you know, when you've been here, water is really important in the Western states. Streams and rivers are notoriously haunted out here. Even in New Mexico, any campground, because most campgrounds are near creeks or streams in New Mexico, they're haunted. And it makes you wonder, why are streams and creeks haunted? Why is water always involved? And I always thought it's because
Energy.
humans forever have been going towards the water. They've been needing this water. That's where they hang out. That was their lifeline. So, and I've experienced it myself. I was up right on the New Mexico border, way up in the tail end of the Rocky Mountains, and we were camping. It was two of us, and we're camping right by a stream, probably a good 40, 50 miles away from the nearest town. And in the middle of the night, you could hear footsteps, and we both heard them just walking along the creek. And you grab your flashlight, we're pretty brave, grab a gun and a flashlight and look, and as soon as you turn the light on, it would stop. And it wasn't like a cow walking or deer stomping through your camp or anything like that. It was clear. We even heard like a person clearing his voice, like one of those, a man. And like, that really scared us. We're like, holy shit, there is somebody out there. And it's always near water. it's near streams or waters or lakes. It's very, you're surrounded by water down there, so I don't know how much a role it plays with you guys down there, because it's virtually everywhere.
Water? Are you kidding me? The stories of the hauntings on the beaches in the ocean, and salt also being a great conductor of energy. Yeah, we have tons of stories about things like that. So water also is a great source of energy. What do you normally find in streams and stuff? You find rocks and minerals that could be conducive to energy. I mean, I think water is a huge part of it. And folks that deal, like yourself, that deal with the paranormal, we find water to be a very big part of what we do.
Out here in the West, all streams pretty much all have magnetic sand, black sand. Which is, when you're panning for gold, that's the second heaviest thing you'll find in your pan. It's all black and magnetic. And then, of course, every stream out here has quartz in it. And we all know about quartz.
That's exactly.
Every stream here is full of quartz. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go one step further, and I know we're getting a little bit away from the stories, but we, a lot of times in our investigations, employ dowsing rods. Now, what were dowsing rods originally used for? We use them for our stuff, but what were they originally used for? Finding water.
Yeah.
How do they find water? If it's with a Y, they either bend down, or if they're rods, they cross. Energy's doing that. So I think that's that's the answer to that question. Water is an important part of what we don't know.
It just seems odd that so many of the disappearances that are unexplained happen near water, and maybe it's a coincidence. I don't really believe in coincidences. It's I don't know, but that's one explanation. I mean, the guy just walked outside to take a leak and got snagged up by a 10-foot tall hairy critter that bear hugged him and walked away with him, and those guys can cover some distance.
There's another story out of Crater Lake then that you might find interesting, it wasn't a willow tree. It was a stump. They call it the old man, but it's a stump. It was a willow or another type of tree. But it floats in the Crater Lake all over the place, and people have been noticing it since the 1800s. Somebody took, I guess it was a boat or a submersible out there, and they saw this stump, and they tried to tie up to it. And the second they did, the weather turned terrible. Heavy wind, it just turned terrible. They kind of freaked out, untied themselves from the old man. Was it a willow tree or a tree that begins with a W? Can't think of it now. And it stopped. But this stump that only floats straight up and down, not to the side, straight up and down, has been known to traverse 7-8 miles a day across the lake. So it's not growing in there.
Yeah.
It's not growing there. Here's another interesting thing. I saw some pictures underwater of Crater Lake, and it looks like trees growing out of the ground, like obviously no leaves, but like just a strange place. I got to get there.
There's no swamp trees like in Florida. There's no cypresses or anything like
cypress,
that. Yeah, that grow up in that area. I mean, there's a lot of alder which wouldn't grow in swamps. I don't know. Good question. So another mystery with all these disappearances, and I'm stealing this from our 411 guy, Politis, but he claims that more often than not, after somebody goes missing, the following day is a big storm that hampers, that keeps people from searching. It's either a giant snowstorm or a big giant rainstorm that washes away tracks. But it seems very often when somebody goes missing and they call for help, the following day it's really, really bad weather, and it keeps them from searching for a day or two. Almost like it was orchestrated that way.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. So yeah, that's a good point. I'm just trying to think some of our other stories with this maybe even to come into play. But that's interesting. So are we once again dealing with something that's crossing interdimensionally and they're trying to keep us from finding out? I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
They can't all be just rational. Just, even if just 1% of all these stories is paranormal, that's plenty. They can't just all
That
be
is
explained
funny.
away. Like, oh, the guy went out and broke his leg, and the critters all ate him up.
Well, the Yuba County Five, that's, how the heck did they make it all that distance in the heavy snow? How did the one guy, going back to that story, how did one guy survive for 13 weeks before he died and they found him all wrapped up
That's
in,
crazy.
yeah, how's that? In the story with McQuair here, they found him 11 miles off from where he should have been, and he would have had to cross through about 3 feet of snow to get there, wasn't equipped for it. How does that happen? Yeah, and you can't always say, well, he got hypothermia and whacked out and just started running. That's 11 miles.
You're not going to run in 3 feet of snow. You're not even going to
No,
run in 1 foot of snow, much less
not
three
at
foot of
all.
snow.
And yeah, and once again, if when they were looking for him, now I'm assuming the trail was not under snow. It was because it was a decent bit away. It probably elevated a little bit more, and that's why they had the snow. But you would have thought they would have at least looked into that distance, and they would have seen
Oh yeah,
tracks in the snow.
yes, yes.
Um,
There's always trace evidence. I mean, Bobo,
thank you.
why is there no trace evidence there? No tire tracks, footprints, anything, and torn articles, pieces of fiber, hair, DNA. Why is there no trace evidence? I mean, are the cops just saying, it's just another hippie who bit it, or there's nothing there?
I hate to say it, um, and it takes all kinds of folks to be cops, and we know that. And unfortunately, you draw cops and firefighters, service people from the same pool that we draw everybody else from. And it's called the human race. And you get good and bad. You get lazy. You get hardworking. So I can accept occasionally a bad apple isn't doing his or her job properly, but this is too often.
And not
And
everybody.
most folks in our field, they do this because they care. They certainly aren't doing it to get rich.
And they view it as a challenge. I mean,
Exactly.
every
Yeah.
cop,
Well
does
said.
this because he wants to solve this. It's a challenge. I mean, I was that way. I'm like, I got to figure this crap out.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. I'm with you. I was the same way. So even if you do get a bad apple on occasion, it's happened way too much for things to just.
I mean, I get the search and rescues it's become a big business, and it's
Mhm.
very, very expensive to states and counties and anybody that has to involve search and rescue. We got a lady missing up, and I've mentioned this a million times already by now, but she's still missing up in Jemez. She disappeared. Jemez is a mountain range just north of our house, or my house, and it's also a huge caldera. By the way, it's a huge volcanic mountain range, which goes. It's very high. It's completely forested and it's massive, hundreds of miles. But this lady disappeared. There's a story in itself, but I think last fall,
Mm.
she two hunters seen her. She was driving a Subaru, of course. It's near Santa Fe, and it's an inside joke. Everybody in Santa Fe drives a Subaru, but she had a flat tire, and the two hunters offered to change her tire, and I think they did. And then they said, we can take you down into town if you follow us. And she goes, no, I grew up out here. She'd lived in the town of Jemez Springs for a year, 12 years prior to this. So she was familiar with the area. She was just going to hang out. And they said, okay, whatever. And they left her. And that was the last time anybody's seen her. And of course, red flags pop up right away to hunters. Took care
Yeah.
of that. But no, the hunters, they checked out. They were decent people. And they said they watched her walk off. And that's the last time anybody's seen her. And they searched and rescued for, I think, 2 weeks. Which is pretty long. It's pretty expensive to fly a helicopter around for 2 weeks and get dogs and everything out there. And the law enforcement finally said, the winter is coming quickly. We're going to have to call it off. And they called it off. I mean, what do you want to do? I mean, should a family would want you to search until something's found. But there's literally so many people disappearing all the time. I mean, you can't just have all your resources looking for people all the time.
Yeah, and it's sad, but we have to be responsible and good stewards of the big picture. And sometimes you can't expend it any further because somebody else needs your help. Something else is going on. And it would be great if we had enough people, enough resources to just continue to search without interruption forever, how long it takes. But that's unfortunately just not the realization of it. Now, down here, we get people lost in the ocean all the time. The Coast Guard, and those are some brave, wonderful people. They are out there and they're diligent, they're working hard, but there comes a point where they got to say, we've covered everything, we can't do any further, and they got to suspend the search. Families don't understand that. I don't know that I would, so I'm not being critical.
No.
But they've got to make a decision, and it's tough.
Well, there's not a dedicated agency to do search and rescues in most states. The Coast Guard, but that's not their primary responsibility either. Theirs is more to protect the ocean, the waters close to the coast, from everything, whether it's drug runners or illegals, whatever the hell's going on. So that's not their primary. But here in the western states, there's no distinct agency or federal agency that does nothing but search and rescue. Like I said, it's a private business. It's become a pretty big private business. They hire private contractors and helicopters that go.
And what do they do? How do they bring these folks in? They have to hire them, which means somebody's got to pay them. Even if they're doing it just for expenses, somebody's still got to have the budget to do it. And
there's so many people disappearing all the time. That same mountain, the Jemez Mountain I was talking about, I'll have to look this up, but there's a White House chef probably 5-6 years ago, maybe a little longer, that disappeared in those mountains. That was never found. Just disappeared.
Yeah, he saw something he shouldn't have. But
why don't you go camping in New Mexico, Bob? Okay.
Sometimes you gotta wonder. You do have to wonder. But also going back to searching, I got an interesting story to tell you that is somewhat related to this. But I remember when I was at the Martin County Sheriff's Office, we had some guys, they stole, they robbed the bank or something. I don't remember what it was. They ran their car and they bailed, I think is what it was. And three of them went in three different directions. We caught two of them, but the third one actually popped out in front of my partners, walked right across the street from my partner, and he snatched him and locked him up. But then they interviewed him, and he said, and get this one, he was hiding under some bushes. Now it's coastal. There's some rural areas, but it ain't like New Mexico. It is certainly not like up where you're at. This guy was hiding under some bushes while a canine officer walked by with his dog. The dog didn't catch him. The canine officer didn't catch him. It wasn't because they weren't doing their job. It's just sometimes people animals have this ability to see even the slightest change in anything. Humans don't.
Yeah.
And maybe that's also part of why some of these folks aren't being seen, because our human frailties.
And canines, another strange topic, but canines aren't as successful as people like to think they are. And they also pick up on their master's attitude. If their boss has just got a shitty attitude about having to work on Sunday looking for somebody, the dog's going to have the same attitude. He's like, I don't want to be out here sniffing freaking rocks. I'd rather be sleeping at home. I've seen this. I've seen too many police dogs and search and rescue dogs that were just, I could have done better.
They're not perfect, and you certainly can't expect them to be perfect, and the mistakes are going to be made. But my point is not to take a shot at a canine handler or his partner, but it's just that stuff happens, and we don't always catch it. I did a little experiment one time with some family members. We were camping out in the woods, and I had a ghillie suit, and the key was come and find me. This is when I was much younger and I could do this stuff. So I had the ghillie suit on. I'm sitting literally out in the open. And do you think they could see me? Mm-hmm. Now, granted, I had the stuff on, but still there was had no clue I was there.
Yeah.
People just don't see things sometimes.
100% correct. And, back to the search and rescue guys, that made me think of what happened out here frequently in the past is a lot of these really rural New Mexico towns, the majority of men either work for the state highway department or they make their yearly income in wildlife fire management or fighting, which is federally funded. So they literally would make $60,000, $70,000 in one fire season fighting fires, all paid by the feds. I mean, they make bank, those guys. I've known a bunch of them. A lot of them.
Man,
Now, what
I missed the boat on
happens?
that one.
What happens when there's no damn forest fires for the next year or two? They've caught several of those guys catching forests on fire in a neighboring town, just because they have to make their yearly income.
Or they need, because it makes me think of some things that some cops have done. I remember it was in Toledo, where I'm from. University of Toledo police officer got called to a shots fired at a dormitory, and he went out there and he was the hero going in there looking. He's the one that did it because he wanted people to recognize him.
Happened out here with a state police officer. He shot himself by accident playing with his weapon out on one of the rural roads, and immediately called in shots fired on a traffic stop, although he never called out a traffic stop, gave a vehicle description, and it was right next to our county where I was a deputy. So we were on full alert, and we had roadblocks up. We were doing all kinds of crazy crap. And it turned out it was self-inflicted. He even shot a round into his police car. First he shoots himself, and then he shoots a round into his fender, and, saying that was the other guy that shot at him.
Did all they got to do is test the bullet, for cripe's sake? I mean,
so the moral of the story is people are infallible, dogs are infallible. Search and rescue people, sometimes their heart's not in it, they're just there for a paycheck. Because somebody's reimbursing these guys. There's voluntary search and rescues, but I'll tell you, they're few and far between. The professional search and rescue guys, they're not going to fly a helicopter out there for you because they want to find, Billy Bob out there in the woods somewhere.
Well, I think they do, but they do it for a living, so they're going to expect to be paid. I get what you're saying. I take a little bit different tact. I think most people do it, not all, but most people do it with the right intention.
Absolutely.
That's just
I'm with
me,
you on that.
because I look through rose-colored glasses, but
I'm with you on that. The majority of search and rescue people are probably legit, but they're not going to search for you forever because somebody's got to pay this.
They can't, and that's what I was getting at earlier. They just flat can't. And a family who's missing somebody they love does not want to hear that, and I get it. So,
so Bobo. Was there a proper search done? But once again, I've said this before too. I mean, it's been a while now, and nobody's found any clothing, or any parts and pieces or boots or anything. And let me tell you something, that shit would be laying somewhere. And in that area, people hike, people explore, people do stuff. Somebody would find something.
I'm looking at, what have we done? 4 or 5 stories like this now?
Yep.
Okay. In 3 of them, they found evidence, whether it be a body, clothing, or whatever. 2 of them, the young lady on the mule packing trip in Northern California, nothing. And Bobo, nothing. Everybody else, they found something. So that means of the 5 that we've done, 60% of the time they find somebody. 40% they haven't, or something.
Do you remember that pilot? He was a millionaire. I can't remember his name. That disappeared in Nevada. Nevada trip.
Oh.
What was his name? And he was just gone. Nobody could find him. And he was missing they knew his plane crashed, but they couldn't find anything.
Yeah. I do remember that.
But then like 5 years later, some hiker's hiking along and finds a wallet laying on the ground. And in the wallet is a driver's license. And I mean, if you're going to find anything, that's a perfect thing to find. So, and then they searched the area again, and suddenly there's, there's a part of a boot over here. Oh, look, there's this and that. And the guy was found.
Well, once again, that goes back to the one thing I was saying a few minutes ago, that sometimes because people are not perfect, despite how hard they try, maybe they'll miss something. That's the part one. But they found something. Now we've got 2 people where nothing's been found. And now we're talking, what, Bobo was in 98. I think the young lady that was missing was in the 80s, like 80 or something like that. I'd have to go back and look at the show. But that's 20 years and nothing. So I agree with your point, is what I'm getting at. When people turn up, somebody's going to find something. Where Bobo is at, yes, it's rugged, yes, it's rural, but obviously people know where it's at. It's on the map. He's not the only person, I'm sure, that camps there. So there's got to be somebody that has gone through there, yet nothing has ever been uncovered from him. That is unexplainable.
And there's another strange phenomenon that happens out there, and I'm stealing this from Politis also, but it's a high percentage. It's more than half of the time. If they do recover a person, he's recovered in an area that's been previously searched numerous times.
Yeah,
You
yeah, yeah,
know,
yeah.
within a quarter mile from campsite where everybody was staging and people walking around and everything, you know that area has been searched inside and out. And suddenly, 6 months later, some hiker out there by himself in the exact same spot. It's like, hey, there's clothing laying here. There's a person laying here. There's bones here. That happens a lot too, and that makes no sense either. I mean, you can't
Yeah.
explain that one.
Except I go back to people sometimes miss stuff. Now,
Yeah.
was this so in the open they shouldn't have missed it? Hey, somebody falls into the water. Unless you live in Florida where you've got gators that will eat you,
Mm-hmm.
or in the ocean where big fish will eat you, your body's going to pop up somewhere. Unless you're way down, and even then, eventually,
You'll
bindings
pop
will
up
come
eventually.
loose. You'll pop up eventually. Um, but nothing.
So there's just so many cases like this. I mean, it just, you can tie in the paranormal to these cases because of the unexplained. And the unexplained is what happened. You can't
Yeah.
rule it out.
Now,
You can't rule the paranormal out.
you can't, because as a cop, I mean, I'm reading this story about Bobo, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm the detective in charge of this case. What would I do? Now we're missing some things here. We don't know everything we do, but they did. But we have a decent idea. We know that they talked to all of his friends. We know that they interviewed people he had interaction with before he went out there. We know that they checked the area. Heck, the brother was out there, went out there for months checking and never found anything. So what more as a public safety official would I be able to do? And on this case, I don't know. The young lady that turned up missing, that I keep mentioning, where her camera and flip flops and everything was gone.
Yeah.
Um,
The last one we did on, what's her name? Stacey Harris.
yeah.
Just gone. Gone. Nobody ever found anything. There are a lot of mysteries out here in the woods. Another mystery is a lot of bodies are recovered with only one shoe on or one boot on, and the other boot's never found. Now, any logical person that's lost, desperate, maybe hypothermic or hyperthermic, or whatever the situation is, you're not going to take one shoe off. You're either hot and you take both your shoes off, or you just leave them on. But you're not going to take one off and continue hiking. It's so many bodies. Probably more than half of the bodies that are recovered are missing one shoe. A lot of times both. But what happened to the other shoe? And it's not like a bear ripped your shoe off your foot. There's no marks or anything like that. It's just shoes missing. And what the heck happened there? That happens a lot.
Yeah. And I'm sure we're going to end up hearing more stories, talking more about these stories. I once we started looking into this, I'm really amazed how many folks are just gone. We have it happen here in Florida, but we do not have the vast national parks that you do. Where
I venture to bet you have a ton of people that disappear in Florida in the ocean. A lot of undocumented people. You have such a population base down there that people probably disappear and don't even get reported.
that's entirely true, and we do have that issue. One body is a Andrea Parsons case I was involved in years ago, and she just disappeared out of Martin County. She just flat disappeared, and they know who did it. They finally put somebody in jail for it. The case has long been closed. We've never recovered the body. Why? Because it probably went into the water, and we have predators in our freshwater, gators. Heck, bull sharks even can come into fresh water. I don't know if you knew that or not, but a bull shark can survive in fresh water. So we've got lots of predators down here. So you're probably right, but I don't know that we have the vast untamed area that you all do out in the west and the northwest, where it's just almost impossible to search. We don't have mountains in Florida, for example. We do have swamps, and things do sink in swamps.
But the ocean out there, you have so much ocean. And I mean, if you were to dispose of a body, thinking like a murderer, a criminal, and if I was living in Florida and if I had to dispose of a body, I mean, I would dispose of a body in the ocean. I would rent a boat and freaking go 15, 20 miles offshore, chop you up and throw you into the water. I mean, how in the heck is anybody going to find that?
And I'm sure that does occur. Yeah, I'm sure that does occur.
Got to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and you don't have much of a crime scene then to work with.
not at all. It's constantly moving.
Yeah.
Everything's moving around. I mean, yeah, and plus you have crime scene cleaners under the surface that are eating up everything that you're chumming the water with. I mean,
Yeah,
I
but
bet.
you'd be surprised how many times bodies do pop up in the water, though.
Well, I think if you're just a couple of miles offshore and somebody throws you overboard with a bullet hole in your head, you're probably going to come washing up.
Yeah.
But I think if you went 30 miles out and whacked some limbs off and made yourself, really, really bloody, I mean, something's going to eat you. Even if it's the little fish, it'll just come up and nibble you to death. There's not going to be much left. That's just my thoughts. I'm not an ocean
You're already
person.
dead. How can they nibble you to death? They're already dead.
Well, maybe. Maybe you were just semi-dead, just partially dead. But
Well, maybe that's a story I will look into in the not too distant future. Missing people in the ocean.
how serious do they take, in Florida, a person missing, Bob? Bobo's gone. Bobo lived with me. He's gone. Police shows up. Like, did you and Bobo have a fight? Did domestic issues? Does he have mental problems or drugs? No, he has got none of these things. He went out for a walk and he is gone. Police does a report, missing person report, enters you into a database, a missing person, and that's probably the end of that. There's probably, nobody's going to say anything else. Nobody knows that Bobo was standing on the beach in Florida somewhere and got sucked up by a bright blue light that came from the sky.
Well, a lot depends on, once again, on who it is. Now, this is not necessarily a negative, but if you're an elderly person, you're a person with documented mental health issues, you're a child, a lot more resources are going to be put into that than a 35-year-old guy that had a fight with his girlfriend and just decided, I'm going to go for a walk. Yeah, there can be a big difference with that.
What is roughly the population of Miami?
Oh dear God.
Shoot, it's millions, right?
Yeah.
And it's surrounded by water. It's surrounded. There's got to be a ton of people.
Now you got me looking this up here. Population of Dade County.
I'm gonna say 2 million. More than that's got to be more than that. 4 million.
2.67 million as of 2022.
That's a lot of people.
Broward has 1.9 million, which is Fort Lauderdale, for those of you that don't know. Palm Beach County is 1.5 million. So that's a lot of people. Now that we have another angle too, is we've got folks coming across from different Caribbean islands in boats often, and that those people may or may not be undocumented, and there may be some that die en route, and we've had that happen many times.
Yeah, there's no doubt. No doubt. There's I think most of your sea life out there in the ocean probably lives off of human bodies.
Man, you've got such a dark way of looking at things, man.
If you wanted to go fishing, use some human bait. That's probably what they're used to. What are you chumming with? I got a finger.
So moving right along now.
Some finger food.
Finger.
I'm just saying. I'm just thinking, of people disappearing because I think it happens everywhere. But I think when you have vast mountain ranges or ocean next door to you, it's probably pretty easy to disappear out there.
Yeah, it is. And we're going to be talking more and more about folks that are missing. Where we can, we're going to talk about crime scenes and what we might have done differently. This last case, I don't think we could have done anything differently. We don't, A, don't have enough information, and B, no evidence to deal with.
You know what I'd like to see? And
this
is now in this day and age, not back when I was a police officer. But these scenes where missing people are, I would like to take a person like Chris out there, or some guy that claims to has abilities beyond our understanding, and put that stuff to use. Don't tell me about my dying mama. Tell me where the hell this person went. Show me.
Well, Chris and I have actually. Chris is our friend in England, by the way. Chris, if you're watching, howdy. Chris and I have done Chris and I have done that a couple of times, and Chris has some incredible insight. There's several missing ladies in the town of Fellsmere, and Chris has provided me with some insight as to what may have happened, and we've not been able to put it together, but it's some pretty, he was able to say some things that I didn't know, or that I didn't tell him, I should say, that he was able to talk about as far as the area, so I know he was tuned in. So who knows, we may find that. I agree with you, and we've actually done some of those things, and we're still working to.
That'd be interesting to see. Because if you truly possess those powers, put them to good use. I'm sure you can't
He
just
does.
dial in what you want to do, and it probably doesn't come to you as you. But wouldn't that be well worth it?
And and he'll tell you the same
I
thing.
think there's actually a few cases out there where mediums have pointed people in the right direction.
Yep. There is, and so stay tuned. We'll get back to you, Chris. If you're listening, we got to get back to work on a couple of these, bud, and we'll maybe look at some new cases too. So,
so the Bobo story, in closure, what happened to Bobo?
In closure, what happened to Bobo? We don't know. No crime scene, no evidence, no bodies, no nothing. Complete and total unexplained disappearance in an area known for disappearances, known for paranormal activity. Is it connected? We don't know, but these are the questions that we need to ask.
Yep, absolutely. I agree. And the dude with the camera that walked the distance in the snow, same story. No idea. No clue. Makes no sense. That's why we talk about it. If it all made sense, then we would just be telling true stories of the crime that happened or something like that. But we don't know. We just don't know. So this was episode number 19. Still hanging in there.
Good. Well, I hope you guys share the stories. Let your friends know that we're out there. We'd love to hear from you. So if you have any comments or thoughts, please get with us. And how can they do that, Mr. Ike? How can folks
just comment on the video? Go to YouTube when you're watching this video, and just and plus at the end of the video, our emails are there. If you don't want to have it public, you can email me or Larry. Or just comment on the video. Or just give it a thumbs up, or for God's sake, do something that you're listening or watching. That's what I'm saying.
And if you got some ideas on something you want covered or any questions, let us know that too.
Mm-hmm. If you're a retired police officer or current police officer and you have some crazy information or stories about any of these cases we're talking about, hey, write us a little story. Let us know. We'll air it. We'll make you famous. With our 9 viewers.
Well, until next time.
All right, guys. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.